What is the biggest need for the Philadelphia 76ers next season, position-wise, everything in between? We're going to dive into it right here on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And this episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Now let's get into the episode. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Locked On 76ers. We're your host, Keith Pompey, 76ers beat writer. I'm Kayla Santiago, sideline reporter for the Delaware Bluecoats, the NBA G League affiliate of the 76ers. If you're watching us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. In addition, you can check us out on our free daily newsletter on LockedOnDaily.com. And there's a lot of prizes that you can win for that free daily newsletter that we will get into later on in the show. So the biggest need for the Philadelphia 76ers next season. Keith, where are you going? In my end, I believe they need some shooters. How are you feeling out for the 76ers and their needs for next season?
I mean, right now, for me, the 76ers is the biggest need is health. They got to be healthy. I mean, right now, and then they got to be younger. There's two things. The team was, when you look at this last season's team, they were slow, they were old, and they were banged up. I mean, Tyrese, Maxey, Joel Embiid, and Paul George missed a combined 134 games. A guy like Jared McCain, what did he do? He missed 60-something games or 53 games, something like that, or 58, 59. So when we look at the 76ers, their biggest need right now is health. We have to see what they can do when they all become healthy and all together. So I would have to say right then and there, the biggest need is health, and they got to be a little bit younger, a younger team. And I think they tried to address that with the trades they made late in the season in February. But the health factor is the one thing, because let's face it, we don't know what they have until they all get out there together and play and are healthy.
I'm going to add to that really quickly here too, because I started off with shooting and I will go back to that. But when we look at somebody like Joel Embiid, he is the centerpiece of this franchise. He is going to be the reason they do well or they don't at the end of the day. But I'm curious because the goal is to obviously bring Joel Embiid back healthy. And we're still in a wait and see game of, hey, is he going to be okay? How is he going to react to that knee? And I want this team to get chemistry. I think that's something that they didn't have last year, even when all three of them were on the floor. It looked really, really tough out there. But, Keith, do you see this year also being another season where the 76ers may say, no Joel Embiid on back-to-backs? They want him to be healthy for the playoffs because you only get chemistry by playing. But we do have to remember he is coming back from a surgery, again, on that knee that has been bothering him. Is this a situation, again, where they say, Joel Embiid, no back-to-backs?
I mean, it could be that way, but it's also, like you said, it's a wait and see. But, Joel Embiid said at the beginning of last year, he didn't say that I'm not playing back-to-backs this year. He mentioned that he's probably not going to play back-to-backs for the remainder of his career. So, I mean, it could be one of those things. But again, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I mean, because in regards to him not playing back-to-backs, when's the last time that he's really played back-to-backs? Like when he played back-to-backs, we were like, oh, wow, Joel's played back-to-backs, right? But in regards to health is, it's just one of those things where, you got to get a larger sample size to see what this team can do. I mean, right now, when you look at the 76ers, let's be honest. We could go out there and say the 76ers need this, they need that, they need that, but we really don't know what they need or know how good they are until they have a healthy lineup out there over a period of time to where we can say, okay, I can see how this fits, how that works. Then from that point, then we can go out there and start dissecting things and saying, okay, they need this, they need that. But for right now, I think that, you got Paul George who had a messed up knee, a messed up groin, a messed up hand. Joel Embiid's knee was bothering him. He had some other things. His face was messed up. right now we got to have we got to see what this team looks like when they're healthy. And that's the biggest thing. That's it. And they got to be younger. They got to be more athletic, younger, but primary healthy. We're not going to know anything until we see it. But in regards to Joel Embiid not playing in back-to-backs, we don't really know the answer to that. But at the same time, you just have to go by what you've seen or witnessed the last several seasons. And you can count how many times he did play on back-to-backs. You know what I mean? So that's just where it is. I mean, I think when you come down to that, the focus has to be like the LA Clippers. The LA Clippers started the season, Kawhi was on the shelf, and now they're in the playoffs, and Kawhi is looking like the old Kawhi. And the 76ers, will probably like if they could have that from Joel Embiid, then everyone's going to be happy.
And I think the biggest thing is going to be patience for next year. And saying that word to a Philadelphia fan base is definitely going to ruffle some feathers. But when you look at the 76ers team, to me, and you regard on health, you're probably not going to see this team chemistry early on in the season because, as you alluded to, very rare for Joel to play in back-to-backs. They're clearly going to be managing that knee even going into this season. I'd be shocked if we maybe see him even in a preseason game, possibly one or a half, just to try to get him out there. But he is coming back from surgery. So that is going to be something at the center point that everybody's going to look at saying, well, he needs to get chemistry. There wasn't that last year. Their goal is still Joel Embiid be healthy until the postseason and in the postseason. So you may see a little bit of tough chemistry early on, to me, between this team. Getting younger is huge. And that's why when we talk about who do you bring back and, where the money's at and where the money lies trying to stay under that cap, it's important for the 76ers to look at that because last season it was you bring in these vets and then, you have Eric Gordon on the team, you have Reggie Jackson on the team, and you're looking at that and saying, okay, that's some experience to have with Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey. We clearly see how that hurt them, but you need a younger and athletic team, a squad that can run up and down the floor if those guys don't play or if they're in regardless. And I think what the 76ers did, as much as this season was a tough one to watch for a lot of people, when you bring in somebody like a Quentin Grimes, Jaron McCain coming back looking to be healthy, that is, to me, a step up going into next year because having that youth on your side, regardless of Paul George is out there, Joel Embiid is out there, to me, that is making the 76ers even better now than they were a season ago. Depending on who comes back, they're still looking going into 2025, 2026, younger, more athletic, and quicker.
Yeah, true. And I mean, but that's something that they, they tried to correct. But at the end of the day, if they're not healthy, like the problem is when we look at it, you have $149.1 million tied up to 4 players. And one of those players is on a rookie contract, and that's Jared McCain. He's not making a lot of money. Right. All 4 of those players we're talking about were injured last season. We're talking about Joel Embiid. We're talking about Tyrese Maxey. We're talking about Paul George, right? So you could bring in Kevin Durant to play with him, right? You can bring in all these other people. If they're not healthy, they got a problem. You know what I mean? Now, the younger aspect, we both agreed, but that's the reason why I'm putting it in stages because, you need to have a healthy team and you need to have it over a sustained time because let's be honest, they only played 15 games together as a big 3. 15 games. That's it. And Jared McCain played in like 20-something games, which was the equivalent of a college season. Played in the first 23 games. So, they just, to me, it's like we won't, and I probably keep repeating myself, but we won't know what the 76ers have at all and what they need until they get out there and they roll that ball out and they're healthy. And then Nick Nurse could sit back and then Daryl Morey could sit back and like, okay, I see it. This is the missing link because we could pick up Lonnie Walker. You could do all these other things, which are great because you got rid of older players. But at the same time, they're not the type of guys that are going to help you win games unless Joel Embiid is healthy.
You're right. And I need Joel Embiid, Paul George, even all these guys to maybe call up a Tom Brady or LeBron James and saying, what do you do for your body to keep it healthy, to keep it good, whether it's a good eating habits or the workouts or whatever they do. Listen, injuries happen in the game of basketball, but the 76ers, they are relying heavily on being injury-free coming into this next season, because otherwise you're really looking at some changes following next year as well. So we'll continue to touch on the 76ers, their needs, what we're looking at for next year. Health is the number one thing, though. Clearly getting younger is elevated as well. So we will touch on that on the other side right here on Locked On 76ers. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start really building your wealth. Surprising insights. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Trust me, people, it can be a lot for me if I get home late from work or I'm just busy, just trying to get something really quickly. It can be a lot, $5 here, $5 there. I say it's not that bad, and then you add it all up, and it's a little bit scary, the number you're looking at. Now I budget smarter, and I'm able to save a lot more as well. All in one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMBA, half off your first year. So make sure you go check it out today. So shooting, I alluded to this earlier in the show, is another thing that I look at for Philadelphia. And we broke it down a little bit before, but you look at the NBA playoffs and you look at teams that have shooters that can come in quickly, knock down 2 threes, and that can elevate them and give them a run. Now, Keith, I know we've touched on Eric Gordon already, so we don't have to go down that road a little bit, but he's a player that is older, that can come in and do that. I was saying no to Eric Gordon. What I do like, if the 76ers, in terms of where they fall in the draft, and this is a name I really haven't mentioned. I've talked a lot about Ace Bailey, a lot about Cooper Flagg. Trey Johnson is somebody that can come in and be a good shooter if the 76ers end up falling in that 5 or 6 range as well. He was 40% from 3, a little bit below in college in this past season. So the 76ers could potentially go to the draft to look for a shooter depending on where they will fall. But shooting, to me, Keith, and I'm curious to your answer to this, do you feel that anybody on the 76ers team could come up as a better shooter, whether it's a Justin Edwards, whether it's a Quentin Grimes, and be more of a knockdown guy because they're not going to have the ball in their hands, and that might be a role that the 76ers are looking for them to come up into?
Yeah, I mean, right, I guess when I look at the Sixers, we talk about Eric Gordon. I mean, he shot 40.9% for the year on the team, right? And then you have a guy like Jeff Doughton who shot 40%. Jared McCain shot 38.3. Now we're talking about from 3, right? Yabusele shot 38%. Quentin Grimes, as a 76er, he shot 37.3, but he shot like over 40%, when he was with Dallas. I think they have some pretty good shooters, right? I do, my opinion. And then we talk about, Tyrese. Now, Tyrese, his shooting 3-point percentage was down this year. He only shot 33.7%, but he was phenomenal from 3 the year before that, right? So I kind of think that they have it a little bit. He's a career 38.1% shooter. I think they have it there, in my opinion. Like, they have some shooters. You can always have more, right? To help you out. But there's certain guys, and yeah, you can go out there and you can look for them and this and that. But to me, if you got the number 5 pick you got to go or number 4 pick or number 3. It's all about best player available. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if this guy you feel like isn't a great shooter, but he's the best player available, at that particular point, you got to get him. But the only thing is, I feel like that's where the health factor comes in. Because if these guys that we mentioned, if Joel Embiid it continues to be healthy, and if Paul George and all these other guys are healthy, then what that's going to lead to that these other guys are going to get a lot of open looks. You know what I mean? Tyrese Maxey, he's going to go back to the year before where Joel was drawing a lot of attention. And then guess what happens? He's going to get open, and as open as he can get, because he is a star player and people are going to try to take him out of his game. But at the same time, I think that we'll see if all these guys are healthy, we'll see more of the Tyrese Maxey from 2 seasons ago than we will last year. Because look, Tyrese, this is the crazy part. His second year in the league, he shot 42.7%. Yeah. His third year, he shot 43.4%, right? Last year, not this season, but the 2023-24, he shot 37.3%. So when that says is when he had James Harden and Joel Embiid, he was shooting at a high percentage, extremely high percentage from 3. I think that he could get back to being that guy as long as those other guys are healthy.
Let me ask you this too on the flip side of that, because I feel that Tyrese Maxey really excels on a lot of different things with the 2-man game with Joel Embiid, right? Whether it's the pick and roll, whether it's the screen to get him open and shoot a 3. Those two have figured that out. They have excelled. With Tyrese Maxey, if he can get back to that shooting form, does it take away from Paul George whatsoever? Because what you want at any point is saying, okay, Tyrese Maxey can shoot at a high clip one night. Paul George can go off on another night. Joel Embiid can be there, and they will all figure it out together. But if Tyrese is going for these high percentages game after game, utilizing Joel Embiid, utilizing that 2-man game, does it take away from Paul George? Because that's what we saw last year. And I know we're talking 2 seasons ago, but will that take away from the 2-man game? Is that any worry, or you feel that there's enough to go around between the 3 of them with Tyrese Maxey if he can shoot at that high clip once again?
I don't think it matters at this particular point. Yeah. I mean, you look at Tyrese Maxey, what is he, 24 years old? Tyrese Maxey is the guy who, if Joel Embiid has to pass a torch, he has to give the torch to Tyrese, right?
Right.
My thing is, I feel like, you need him shooting at a high percentage for the team to be successful. You need to get him involved. Now, again, yeah, Paul George's numbers are going to go down, but at the same time, you look at Paul George, and it is going to become one of those situations where I feel like all of them, their numbers are going to go down in a certain area a little bit, but at the same time, you look at him, he's going to be older. He's going to be, 35? But he's a guy that you're going to have to look at to say, hey, you're going to have to be a 2-way player. I mean, that's what he came here to be, someone that's going to help out. Like his role was, not to be the alpha, but to be someone who can help Tyrese Maxey excel. Now, the thing is, I think that it also is going to benefit everyone because it means if Paul George is being assertive and doing certain things, that's going to free Maxey up to get shots. And then if Maxey is cooking, then all of a sudden it's going to free Paul George up to get other things. So, I think that right now when we're talking about shooting, you got to worry about getting Maxey and all those other guys back to where they are. And I think everything else will fall in place. But again, it all goes back to they all have to be healthy. That's what it is. They just have to be healthy.
Keith, before we send things to break, you've covered this team for quite a while now. Has there ever been, clearly when Joel Embiid started with the 76ers, he comes in injured. Ben Simmons also comes in injured. You're waiting for those guys to get healthy. You're relying on that from that standpoint, right? Joel Embiid has been injured in the playoffs consistently. You're waiting for him to get healthy. But going into a season, since you've covered this team, is this the biggest relying on health year going into it, if that makes sense? Because I know that every team relies on their health and everything in between. But you are really this year relying on a situation for the big fella and Paul George to be healthy, because if they're not, there is a lot of things that are going to change the following year. Where does this kind of rank in terms of going into a season where you're really relying on that health to be successful?
You know, to be honest with you, every season has been that way for the 76ers. Like when you're being honest,
When
like
you break it down, yeah.
when you break it down, it's like everything's relying on Joel's health. Because let's face it, the way this team has always been built is one of those things where you have to say, like, if he's not healthy, they're not going to go far in the playoffs, right? It's just been that way. He has to be healthy. But this year is probably the biggest, just because of, they only played 15 games together. Not only was Joel injured, Paul George season was over as well, and then you also have Jared McCain was hurt. A couple, Eric Gordon, who wasn't like a key role, a key star on his team, but he was injured. Tyrese Maxey was injured. So when you look at it, we're talking about the three highest paid players on the team were all hurt. Mm-hmm. Now we can say that Tyrese Maxey could have came back and played, right? You can argue that and say that part of the reason he was shut down was because the team was tanking towards the end. But at the same time, when you factor in that you got two All-Stars, a 9-time All-Star in Paul George, who was on the shelf, and you have a 7-time All-Star in Joel Embiid on the shelf. Yes, this has to be the most probably the worst season in regards to factoring health heading into a season. But at the same time, I hate to say it, it's been this way every year since Joel's been here, every season.
And it's so interesting, too, because before this season started, we said, oh, there's no preseason drama. There's no James Harden, no Ben Simmons. And then the drama started to happen throughout the season. And now you're looking at it and you're saying, well, there's a lot riding on those three guys to make something happen a year from now as well for Philadelphia, because we're not necessarily in the top of the prime of the Joel Embiid era anymore. We're starting to kind of go towards the other side and the end of things in my mind, because when you look at Joel Embiid right now, you say, okay, his prime wasn't necessarily during that Raptors series. He was starting on the come up. Then he decides to dominate. He wins MVP. He gets a 70-point game, but he continues to be injured. And now you look at him and you say, okay, another surgery on that knee. It's all relying on what he can do, because maybe the year after that, if he is not healthy, what do the Sixers do from that standpoint? It's not the dominating Joel Embiid era anymore. So it is going to be interesting once again. The biggest things, health is number one for the Philadelphia 76ers. So we will continue when we come back right here on Locked On 76ers. Don't go anywhere. Spring is here, and that means it's home project season. Whether you are refreshing a room or tackling a full renovation, Wayfair is the best kept secret for all things home improvement. From small updates like stylish cabinetware to major upgrades like new vanities, sinks, or outdoor lighting, Wayfair has quality products for every single budget. I just upgraded my kitchen, bathroom, and living space, all things in between with Wayfair. And the selection was absolutely incredible. Their free and fast shipping made it so easy, hauling heavy items from the store. I love that they help top brands and have like GE and Moen at great prices. Shopping was seamless, and I found exactly what I need to fit my space and style. Wayfair makes home improvement easy. Get started at wayfair.com. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every single home. Another person, I'm not going to say player, that I really feel that people are going to look at this season is head coach Nick Nurse, right? Because last year, people give him a pass a little bit. Some people really didn't like him out there. I say you give him a pass because this season was incredibly insane in terms of injuries and everything that happened. But to me, this is an important year and kind of a make or break season too for head coach Nick Nurse, in the sense of if these guys are healthy, his expectations completely skyrocket to at least get them to an Eastern Conference final.
Yeah, I agree. But but I don't think, if they're healthy, then people are going to look at him. But basically, that's going to all come in the playoffs, like to see what he does, the type of lineups and everything and this and that. But, I feel like that's the biggest question mark, if they're going to be healthy, and how healthy are they going to be, and can they remain healthy? I feel like Nick never really got a chance to show what he can do. So there may be some people who are going to like, oh, he has to do this, he has to do that. And we get it. It's all about finding the scapegoat and everything like that, and who's going to take the blame. But, Nick hasn't done anything that I feel like that was wrong to prove that he can't coach a team. But yeah, I mean, but I do believe that it's bigger on the front office than it is him as a coach. I mean, I just think that's what it is. He'll be fine. A lot of people are going to look at him, but I mean, that's what they do, right? He's making $8.5 million a year. So he's made $17 million over the first 2 seasons. But let's say, has he had an opportunity to prove what he could do? Now, some people might look at certain games, but at the same time, even in the playoffs, like they were banged up. He actually had 3 versions of this roster his first season. You had the one in the training camp with James Harden. Then you had the one from once James Harden was traded to the trade deadline. And then you had one from the trade deadline to the playoffs. And then you look at this past season, and you say to yourself, okay, he had the older squad that had the high expectations and nobody played, to then towards the end, he had the tanking squad. So, it's I would hate for people to put a lot of pressure on him, because I don't feel like he is the problem, but he is the coach, and people are going to talk about him and try to dissect him. But I keep saying he's not the one who created this mess.
That is very true. And we are going to touch on that tomorrow. So make sure you guys tune in. Is it a make or break season for Daryl Morey? Well, we will discuss all things Daryl Morey, front office, and so much more tomorrow on Locked On 76ers. And we talked about at the beginning of the show that you will have some chance to win prizes if you subscribe to our free daily newsletter on LockedOnDaily.com. You can win a $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your sports cave setup, a $300 Game Time gift card, and a $200 Fanatics gift card as well. You can do this up until April 30th, so go check out our free daily newsletter on LockedOnDaily.com. We will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we'll see you guys next time.